Hello everybody and welcome. A couple months ago when I made a video about all the work done on this car, I did say that I was going to do a small series of videos going more into detail of some of the work done in the car. Things such as the braking system, suspension, carburettors and other bits and bobs that were done in order to get this car back on the road. So today we're going to look into the carburettors, all the work that was gone into them, and why in the end I went to fuel injection. When the E12 was first introduced in September 1972, it came with a 2-litre engine and with a twin Stromberg carb setup. It needs a little bit of extra power compared to the 2002 and 2000 saloons because the 12 had extra weight. So they picked up the engines from those cars, gave them higher compression pistons, reworked the heads, and then all that combined with the twin Strombergs gave the power went from 100 to 115 horsepower. Those Strombergs were not very widely used. At least I don't know any other application as a twin setup, but they were used as single carbs on the Mercedes W115 and the Volvo's 144 and 240 as well. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But these carburetors have since developed a reputation for being a little bit hard to tune and to set up and to get the cars to run right. And therefore, many people just upgrade them to Weber setups, which were much easier to tune and parts availability was much better. When I got this car back in 2022 and got it running for the first time in many years, it ran okay, but not as it should. It was actually running very rich. And there was no point in tuning the carburetors because the only way forward was simply just to take them off, rebuild them, put new gaskets, give them a thorough cleaning, and also to put new needles because I don't think they would have been in great condition. Of course, and replacing hoses and so on, make sure that everything, there was no play in the parts or anything like that. So that's what I've done next, and that's the video that you're going to see right now.
So here they are, the twin Strombergs in all their filthy glory. You can see they are very, very dirty, so they are going to need a good scrub. The same with the engine as well, but that is soon to change once I get everything out and everything nice and clean. Removal process is actually quite simple. First you remove the air filter box, then disconnect the electrical connections for the auto choke, and then you proceed to remove some of the fuel pipes to connect to the carburetors, the fuel pump, and so on. A few gear linkages, some return springs, more linkages for the accelerator, and then I proceed to remove the coolant pipes that connect to the auto choke. Now my challenge was with the auto choke. You see these pipes here from the body are made of aluminium and they corrode very easily. In fact, if they stay too long, this is what happens. I tried to remove the pipes and they snapped because they were heavily corroded, and the same on the other side as well. Unfortunately, because these parts are not easy to get and they are not cheap either. Once all the nuts are removed, they just simply slide out. Of course, there's always something in the way, but it's actually not too hard. You just slide out and, oh, what's that? Silicon gasket? Oh dear. So yeah, there's no place for silicon gasket in here. It doesn't really need. Stuff looks actually quite dirty inside, which is as expected. And exactly the same story with the right carburetor. No silicone gasket in here, and everything looks almost as dirty as the other one. So here we are. This is the right carburetor. You can see by the shorter auto choke pipes, and of course everything full of varnish and grease and all sorts of stuff. Probably about 50 years worth of dirt. Not surprised. And here inside there doesn't seem to be any play on the butterfly. Everything seems to be nice and solid. A little bit of evidence of rust, but of course all the chambers look very, very dirty, which is expected for a carburetor of this age. And on the left carburetor, of course, the same scenario. No surprises in here. All this will be dismantled. It will be thoroughly cleaned. And in here as well, no play on the butterfly as well, which is good news, because otherwise I would have to replace it. Time to give these carbs a damn good clean. I've used a mix of 3 products. Brake cleaner initially to break down some of solid dirt. Give it a good dousing and let it soak for a few minutes. And then I started to use a brush to break down and remove some of the solid dirt. I use a combination of 3 products: brake cleaner, carb cleaner, and also Surfax HT to break down some of the other stubborn stains. And it did work very well. As you can see here, I'm already using Surfax HT, and you can see all the shine from the aluminium going through. Give it a last good rinse with water, and you can see how much better it does look. 50 years of dirt all removed. So here they are, both carburetors, nice and clean. I've already done this carburetor. I did it as a bit of a trial run. I replaced some of the gaskets, and the job wasn't as hard as I initially thought. However, for this one, I couldn't find a suitable replacement part, so I'm going to try a creative solution by using a couple of copper pipes, thread them and insert into these. I see no other alternative to do it. And this plastic linkage was later replaced. I got the part from Valox Next, and it was good to go again. Now I'm starting with the disassembling process by removing all the screws here from the top of the chamber, but I don't think I should have removed this first. Should have been the one at the bottom. You can see is full of ATF oil, which is used to dampen the piston inside. And also very important, please do not lose these tags. They are important to identify the carburetor. So I screw the top cap on back in and remove the bottom, which will reveal the piston spring, the membrane, the piston itself, and the mid-ring needle. They actually, look at that. It's actually quite dirty. Look at the how black the chamber is. Look how dirty is everything inside, which is not a surprise at all. You also notice that the membrane is a little bit warped, but nothing that can't be replaced. I pour some ATF liquid into the cup, no point wasting it. And you can see here in more detail how dirty the chamber looks inside. And you see that brass orifice inside, that is the jet. Okay, ready for more disassembling. Now I'm going to remove the auto choke mechanism. It is composed by several parts, including a heater element, which is electrically activated for when the car is started. You can see, and there's a lot of filth inside. That's the spring, and there's a lot of crud inside, which will need a lot of cleaning. If I use this hook, you see how much dirt it comes out. So when the automatic choke is activated, it pushes down this plunger or valve. It's an enrichment valve, and if I push it again, it actually stays down. Well, this shouldn't happen, and this probably is the cause why my car was running rich. Then I proceeded to remove the rest of the auto choking mechanism. Only a few screws. They are all very easy to remove. Nothing was seized. I think it was 3 or 6 screws. It pops off, and here it is. Another gasket that needs to be replaced, and more parts that are not seized. Good news. This is the gasket that needs to be replaced. Everything very dirty as expected. I needed to try and make sure that plunger doesn't get stuck, and I found another spring in here which also needs to be dismantled. Okay, let's go and see how it goes. Here you can see more up close the rest of the auto shock mechanism. There are several linkages in here. One of them is actually part of the rebuild kit. Nothing seems to be seized, but the enrichment valve plunger is still stuck, and it is behind that big screw over there, and that will be the next thing that I'm going to take. Everything seems to be fine, just a good clean, and let's go on the next stage. Now I proceed to dismantle the rest of the auto choke mechanism, and this is where I remove the enrichment valve, several tiny pieces like this little pin which I must not lose, and here it is, the valve itself. It should be moving freely, as well as this lever here on the top which pushes the enrichment valve. And here it is. I take it off. Doesn't seem to be too worn. There's a couple of holes that do have a little bit of dirt in them, but this will be all cleaned and degreased. Then I remove the rest of the other levers, and everything is out. This will be removed, and then I proceed to clean every single part with the carb cleaner. Make sure there's no varnishes, grease, and any dirt on it. Then I turn the carburetor upside down and start to remove the bottom parts, starting from this valve. Then I remove all the other bits, and then the float chamber, which is very dirty inside. Then the chain float. I have to check the measurements and movement later. All very easy to remove. A few more pistons and nothing really too hard. Things do seem to be going pretty well at this stage, and everything seems to be working. Now that pipe over there is, I think it is the main jet. Doesn't seem to be too bad, and I don't think I can remove it, but I think I've done pretty well. Pretty much everything has now been removed, and now I'm going to proceed to clean everything. A little bit of a copper wire brush to make sure there's no marks or even lime scale, and again degreasing everything, cleaning every single nook and cranny, and now installing the new parts that came with the kit, starting by this valve here, which came also with a new O-ring, which was not very easy to install. Now that everything has been removed, I'm going to clean the bit that was underneath the auto choke mechanism, and while that soaks away, I'm going to assemble a few more parts of the float chamber. Now I'm going to spray the inside of the carburetor body with the carb cleaner. This part is very dirty with a lot of deposits. I'm going to keep on spraying several times, let it soak for a bit, and then brush it with a small brush. Make sure that everything is nice and clean. And I'm also using these metal brushes, which do help to clean all the nooks and crannies. And I repeat the operation several times and make sure that all is nice and clean. Remove these adapters first. Ugh. Oh, look at that rubbish. Proceed to remove that rubbish silicone gasket thing. This is an adapter that is used from the carburetor on to the intake manifold for my car. Then a final bit of cleaning, and then I finish off everything with brake cleaner to make sure that there is no remaining grease. And look at that. Look how nice it is now. What a difference compared to what it was before. Assembly continues by fitting new parts that come with the kit. All seems to be pretty easy. And then I install the floats back in place. They click nicely. Unfortunately, I didn't record the process where I check the float level, and then I just put everything, the float chamber cover, and it's all coming together now, looking very nice. And next, I'm going to start to assemble the auto choke mechanism, first introducing the plunger, which I have sanded and degreased, putting new gaskets, and make sure that everything is nice and tight. Finally managed to put it right. New gasket goes in here, and then I have to make sure that this attaches onto here. After I make sure that the spring attaches to the lever inside and the body of the auto choke is properly lined up, I tighten everything, and now I go and replace the membrane. Make sure that the piston is nice and clean as well, and all is properly screwed together, otherwise it won't create a tight seal. Position it. There's another ridge in here and should fall into place. That way. I'm going to put these away for the time being. Right, and in here, unfortunately some of the gaskets didn't turn out to be quite the right shape, but I did improvise in some cases, and this one, it wasn't too bad. You've noticed then on previous images that I forgot to put the piston return spring, so I took everything out and put the return spring back in and screwed everything together. Make sure that the piston goes up and down again. Once it was all assembled, it was time to put the carbs back onto the intake, and I did replace some of the rubber gaskets and the plastic cups, removed also that nasty silicone gasket as well, here a new thick O-ring, and slotted everything back into place. It was actually a quite easy job, a little bit tight for access on certain nuts and bolts, clicking all the linkages back into place, vacuum connections, fuel pipes, etc, etc, etc. To replace the pipes of the auto choke mechanism, I got some brass pipes. I threaded them. Also, I threaded the auto choke body and then threaded the pipes back into place with a little bit of glue, and it was all good to go. Unfortunately, soon after, I started to have running issues. Not caused by the carburettors, they seemed to be running well, but it started to overheat, which turned out to be a bad radiator. But not long after, the worst has happened, and it was when the head gasket blew, which spelled bad news for the condition of the engine. I thought initially that this was just white smoke, but no, the engine was definitely knackered, as we found out later, and in the end the engine turned out to be too pricey to rebuild, and the only solution was to get another one.
So how easy was the conversion? Well, I haven't done it myself, but it was done by Mark at MJF Engineering, who did a tremendous job adapting this car from carburetor to fueling injection. This is a 1980s E30 engine, and it came with absolutely everything. This car, this engine was actually fitted before my car. It was fitted to a 1602, so it had already some adaptations to all the cars, namely the sump. It doesn't have the E30 sump. It has a smaller sump, which it's more adequate to these cars, because the E30 sump is transverse, so it wouldn't fit in this car, and several other things. One of the main adaptations on this car was the throttle linkage. Everything is rod operated, while on these M10 injection engines, it's cable operated. So to adapt the throttle linkage from the accelerator pedal to this, it is a little bit of engineering work that is needed in order to for you to be able to accelerate on the car. Plus several other electrical adaptations, going from the starter motor all the way to the fuse box. Because my car, the engine that I bought came with all electronic components, such as ignition module, it's a little bit loose in here because it's the brake boosters are missing. They have gone for specialists to be refurbished, and the solution that Mark found was to bolt onto them, so that's why it's loose here now. There's the combo box, and everything has been adapted to the fuse box. It's not an easy job, but it's perfectly doable. A lot of routing of some cables and so on. Distributor systems pretty much the same as the old one. The only difference is there's a vacuum line, which was already in this engine. The cooling system is actually easy to adapt, but mine is routing back into the engine because the valve, which is located just behind there, the heater valve is leaking and needs to be replaced. So I have no heating in the car. And then, of course, you have the ECU, which I've made this before I send the car to Mark. I just routed back to the main wiring loom, and then just put under the fuse box, which is over there. Well, I can't open this door, it's locked, but you can see it is over there. And the other adaptations are, of course, the fuel pump, because the old carburetor engines do have a mechanical fuel pump, which is located, I think, where was it? I think it's located in that area over there, somewhere around here, and it's operated by the cam. You need an electric fuel pump. So Mark then did some extra wiring and installed a brand new BMW fuel pump, which you can see it in there, right over there. And it was a work that took several hours. It had many new parts, lots of cabling, brackets, and so on, and it just works perfectly. A little bit of work here on the bracket. Of course, it's a bit wobbly because, again, the brake booster is not present, so it's not attached to it. And I'm going to replace this air filter. Unfortunately, because of the setup, I cannot use the original air filter box or even an E30 air filter box, because just simply just would not fit in here. And the beauty of that, and I will never regret going to electronic fuel injection, is that it starts first time every time. So, do I notice any difference of power compared to the older 2-liter version? Not really, actually. No more issues with the troublesome auto choke systems and anything of the sort. I'm actually quite happy that I've made the right choice. It is a smaller engine compared to the previous one, but it has a little bit more power compared to the 1.8 equivalent. This car from me would have 115 horsepower, and this one with electronic fuel injection has 105. Okay, probably after 40 years it doesn't have 105, but it feels just the same as the when I had this car 20 odd years ago. It doesn't feel any different. It drives really, really well. And I think because of the electronic fuel injection, it actually does run much smoother, much better starting. And also, it's not really important when you run a classic, it actually has better fuel economy. Um, and I just couldn't be happier for it. It runs really well, but one thing I have to be careful is to keep all the electronics nice and clean, and especially I might need to get a spare ECU just in case things go wrong, because these kind of electronics are becoming more rare and harder to repair these days. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.